Is this something that's energised you in Labour?
The fight for us hasn't changed. The fight for next year was always about those people who have been missing out. The fact that, you've got 45,000 people who can't get the operations that their doctors say they need. You've got somebody like Trixie Cottingham in Levin, 96-year-old, who only needs an hour and a half of home care help each week and had that taken off her. Young people who can't get work, all those sorts of things. That battleground stuff hasn't changed, but the lineup from the National Party will change. That's the only difference.
But doesn't that lineup change in itself give you a new situation and one that you will be thinking you might be able to capitalise on?
When I see the result from the Mount Roskill by-election and know what went on in that campaign, know that National's chance of getting that seat, or at least doing well in it, even if they didn't win the seat, was entirely based on John Key, who campaigned for 7 days in that seat. It was entirely his pulling power that the National Party was relying on, and yet they could not pull out that vote. That's the significance of that by-election result. The truth is that John Key was being seen less and less by New Zealanders as somebody who was coming up with answers to fix the problems that they were facing.
So are you saying then that John Key had lost his lustre, had lost his shine? People no longer would turn out for him in that way?
No question about it. And I know from the campaign trail, I know from visits around New Zealand too, just the intensity of the comments that I was getting from people about this is not good, it's got to change, we've got to change what we're doing, we've got to change who's doing it. That has been growing for the last several months actually now, and I think the Mount Roskill by-election result was just a crystallisation of the fact that at a time that I was told that my leadership was terminal, actually they couldn't do it. He couldn't do it for the National Party.
Nonetheless, though, John Key, in the last few months that you're talking about, National has consistently been polling, getting on for 50%. How is it possible, or are you saying all the polls are wrong?
Well, what I'm saying is that, at a time when the polls told us we're at 23% and they're at 50%, and John Key's this kind of, incredibly stellar ratings in the polls, that by-election result on the weekend was an absolute slam dunk against them. So
in a pretty safe Labour seat, to be fair,
no,
and it's not a general election.
Seat. It's a national seat. There are more national voters in that seat than Labour voters. And they had a candidate who was running for the second time in it. They had the Prime Minister, John Key, there 7 days, 3 days in a row last week alone. They're the star power pulling out the vote. The vote didn't turn out. People don't want it. And I think what is really symbolic about it is the issues that were at the heart of that campaign for an Auckland seat, housing affordability in particular, crime, and that they are Auckland issues. The government has let people down on that issue, and that is a huge issue going into next year.
Can you look me in the eye and tell me that you weren't delighted, in part, when you heard that John Key was resigning?
I don't get into the parliamentary palace politics. It's, I've dealt with John Key in the 2 years that I've been leader. He is a formidable kind of presence. There's no question about that. But for me, the challenges that we've got and the battle that we were fighting next year hasn't changed. Who I am here for in politics, the people who aren't seeing the benefits of a growing economy, that hasn't changed. I am still in there for that fight.
So you didn't have a smile on your face when you heard?
Well, I knew that the landscape had changed, for sure. And I called John Key myself and gave him my best wishes and said what a dramatic act that was. And we talked a bit about that. But that's what it is. But in the end, there's thousands, tens of thousands of people sitting around in New Zealand wondering, what is going to happen next for them? How do they get ahead? How do they get their first home? How are they going to get the healthcare they need? That question hasn't changed for New Zealanders at home, and that's where the battleground's going to be next year. That hasn't changed, and irrespective of who is there for the National Party next year, the fight will be the same.